Guardian Angel by Lily Pinwheeler. Read by Niche-lle. Chapter 4. One day later, April 12th. Kyoka plops herself down in a seat towards the back, immediately dropping her bag into a seat next to her. It looks rude, and it kind of is, but she's not planning on moving it, since she's saving it for Izuku, so her classmates will just have to deal. Her bag rustles at nothing, and Kyoka smiles, pulling her phone into her lap to tap out a quick, "Cutting it a bit close there, huh? Glad you made it." There's silence, and then she feels an air of cold settle around the hand that's holding her phone, as keys start rapidly pressing themselves. "You didn't tell me Eraserhead was coming! I'm going to die!" She snorts, and resists making the obvious "aren't you already?" joke and pulling her phone closer. "Whoopsie, my bad. Guess I shouldn't tell you about All Might then, huh?" There's a phantom feeling of someone punching her lightly in the arm, and Kyoka has to fight down a laugh. The last thing she needs is her class thinking she's insane right before what promises to be a day dedicated to group exercises. Though it sounds like everyone is too busy roasting Bakugo to be paying her any mind. The cold reaches for her phone again, and she reflexively pulls it away. "You can just whisper, you know. It's noisy, so if you keep it down, no one will hear you except me." "Ah, right. Sorry, I keep forgetting." "No worries. It's not like we've ever hung out like this in public before." Izuku hums, and Kyoka can almost picture him fiddling with his fingers nervously. "Come on, stop that. It'll be fun having you around." "If you say so. I feel like if one more hero shows up, I'm gonna combust." #1 fanboy, ladies and gentlemen. Not even death can keep him from gushing about how cool you are. Nothing can stop me from gushing about how cool they are. Izuku's tone is solemn and serious, and Kyoka finds herself once more fighting off giggles. Yeah, you're an inspiration to us all." The bus pulls in, and Aizawa-sensei stands up, looking as dead on his feet as usual. From beside her, Kyoka can practically feel the way that Izuku is vibrating with unbridled excitement. Aizawa-sensei's eyes rove over all of them, and he looks to be gearing up for a speech. Kyoka braces herself. "Behave." And then their teacher is exiting the bus, and Ida is scrambling to make some kind of order to the chaos of almost 20 students making a mad dash for the steps at once. Kyoka stays where she is to avoid the stampede, absently noting the fellow stragglers, Yagorozu, Shinso, Todoroki, and Shoji. Shoji, who's giving her an odd look before eyeing the empty seat beside her, and Kyoka freezes in place, mentally face-palming at the realization. How could she have forgotten? She'd spent so long being the weird girl who hears everything that it had completely slipped her mind that here in Class A she's not the only one. She leaps to her feet as if burned, leaving her bag behind on the bus like everyone else, and reaching out to grasp at air. Izuku understands the gesture, slipping his arm through hers immediately, and she can't see it or really feel it, but the cold seeps through her sleeves, and she tows him off the bus and lets him know he's still with her. Kyoka can feel Shoji's eyes on her the entire walk inside. Izuku isn't sure how he let Kyoka convince him to do this. But then villains attack, and he's suddenly extremely glad that he's here. Eraserhead jumps in with the determination Izuku has seen on his sleepless nights of prowling the streets for crimes to stop, and it's with horrifying clarity that Izuku realizes this man is preparing to die today. The class is with 13, and they have Ka-chan with them too, and it's a no-brainer for Izuku to choose following Eraserhead over sticking with the group, and he hurries to keep pace and sticks close to the hero's side. He hits anyone he can reach, and there's so very little power in his stupid tiny arms, but it's definitely unnerving to be sure. Villains crying out as they either lose their quirks to Eraser or feel invisible blows from Izuku's fists. And he could do so much more. He knows he could, if he just used his abilities for more than merely keeping up with Eraserhead. He could do some real damage if he wanted to, but there's apprehension in his gut and dread in his heart. A fist squeezing at his useless lungs as he watches the hero leap and punch and dodge and kick and Izuku cannot die, is already long dead. But Eraserhead is still here, and he's so important, and Izuku doesn't know what makes himself different, what makes him special, what keeps him hanging around this world, flitting between solid and fluid, like he's straddling the very line between life and death. But he's never met another ghost in his almost full year spent as one, and that's important somehow, because it means if Eraserhead dies, he's probably gone for good, and Izuku can't let that happen. If there was ever a reason that he wound up like this is it. Eraserhead is unique. A rare breed of hero that does it solely because it is right, and Izuku knows this because he knows how much the hero avoids the spotlight. And if it were simply not wanting attention, then Eraserhead would have simply stopped being an active hero when he became a teacher like so many of UA's other staff have done. But he didn't. He's the homeroom teacher for first years so that he can be sure to set a steady foundation for heroes of the future, and he teaches ethics to the third years to perfect the burgeoning heroes about to take their solo steps into heroism. And with all that, he still patrols because his quirk is too good at saving people from the evils of the night for him to dare to take it out of play, simply because he's tired. Eraserhead is the kind of hero that Izuku wishes he could have been, and so while he does his best to keep his students safe, Izuku is determined to do the same for him. They wade through never-ending waves of villains side by side, though if Eraserhead even realizes that someone is backing him up, he doesn't mention it. They simply keep going, and Izuku pulls out all his tricks that he can manage without making himself fully solid or visible. He trips villains up, scoops dirt from the ground and sends it flying at their eyes, makes them intangible if they get too close to landing a hit on Eraserhead. Anything and everything that he can think of. But he's flagging. It's never happened before, not since the first day with the sludge villain. But then he's never pushed himself to do so much so fast for so long before either. He's flipping rapidly from solid to not, and all the while trying to keep himself totally invisible. He never knew he could get tired like this before. He never even thought he could reach a limit. But that's not going to stop him. He will keep Eraserhead safe. As for what happens after that, well, that's just not important right now. Villains appear in the square, and Aizawa-sensei leaps down to begin his attack, and Izuku's arm slips free from hers. Kyoka has a brief moment of panic that he'd choose now to abandon her, and as the rest of the class runs with 13 towards the exit, Kyoka finds herself turning towards the fight below instead. And for a second, the sight before her takes her breath away, because Aizawa-sensei is winning. It's her first time seeing him in action, and it's hypnotizing, mesmerizing, and she gets it now why Izuku is always fanboying over her teacher in the way he does. If she'd seen him fight like this at any point before the start of the school year, she'd probably be a stuttering mess too when under the full attention of his stern gaze. A hand suddenly grabs her by the sleeve, and she reflexively spins to throw a punch that is easily caught in one of Soji's hands. "Running for our lives, aren't we?" he asks, voice utterly calm. "Or is the entity you snuck onto the bus somehow responsible for all of this?" Kyoka sputters, tugging futilely at his grip on her to no avail. "Izuku is a hero, dipshit. He just fucking died before he could apply to... Look out!" A shadowy villain has appeared before their escaping classmates and unleashed some kind of fog attack, and Kyoka tackles Soji to the side before they can be swallowed up by the swirling darkness. When the inky blackness fades away, only a handful of their classmates remain. Kyoka's eyes widen in horror as her heart starts racing in her chest. It's just her and Soji on this side here, and Ida to the left having clearly grabbed Sero and Uraka. Of the 20 students in Class 1A, they're all that remains, and even 13 is nowhere to be seen. Did this villain possess a form of attack like 13's? Is everyone really gone? Dead? Too soon, just like... "Focus," Shoji mummers. "You can still hear them, can't you?" Kyoka blinks, focusing her quirk and letting out a harsh breath of relief because her classmate is right. She can hear them, scattered across the building and surrounded by villains from all directions, but at least every heartbeat is accounted for. She can even hear the low mumblings of Izuku at Aizawa-sensei's side. Kyoka clenches her fists, polished nails digging into her palms as she takes a deep breath. The closest she's ever felt to losing it like this was back in Nagano, but she'd had Izuku to help her through it then. She can't afford to panic now. If Izuku went to help Eraserhead, then this villain is on his own up here, cut off from the possibility of reinforcements. She can deal with that. She spent enough time with Izuku talking her ear off about hero analysis to quickly categorize their options in less than a second. They've got speed, tape, strength, and a close-range, touch-based anti-gravity. That means the only person up here with a long-range offensive quirk option is... "Hey," she whispers, too low for anyone without a hearing quirk to pick up on. "When the villain is distracted, throw me at him." And before Shoji can do more than stiffen at her side, she's cupping her hands around her mouth and yelling, "Hey, Sero! Blast him!" The villain turns to see who she yelled at, guard up and posture cautious, just as she knew he would. Shoji sends her flying at his back immediately, and she can't resist the smirk as she plugs her jacks into her boot speakers. This won't be enough to keep him down for long. But with her rapid approach and subsequent increase in effect, the villain will be disoriented enough for the rest of her classmates to figure out her plan and jump in before he can make a move of his own. Or not. A portal opens in front of her and she closes her eyes. Zero's tape snags her by the ankle and yank her free at the last second, and she opens her eyes to chaos. Uraraka has grabbed the opportunity to smack the villain with her quirk, and she throws him into the air as Ida zooms for the exit. "You're crazy!" Zero yells, already shooting out fresh stream of tape to snag the floating villain and yank him around. And Kyoka laughs from her sprawled position on the floor by his feet as Soji grabs the tape and pulls the villain around like he's some kind of twisted helium balloon. Her eyes track Ida as he makes it out the doors and she grins. "Yeah, I kinda am." Hey y'all. Sorry about the 2-month hiatus. I'm doing good, and Toothless is all better. Took me a little bit longer to get back into recording because I lost the piece that connects my mic to my iPad during the move. So here's Chapter 4. I hope you like it, and I will have Chapter 5 out next week.